They fear him, not because he holds a gun, but because he holds a vision, one they cannot control. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just rise through the ranks of the army, he rose in the hearts of the people, a symbol of a continent tired of being broken, robbed, and ignored. He doesn't wear a crown, yet walks like a king among his people. No bulletproof glass, no distant convoys, just dusty boots and open roads. That alone shakes the very system that keeps Africa down. Traoré is dangerous to the West's grip on Africa, not because he wants war, but because he wants freedom. The kind of freedom where Africa owns its resources, its story, and its future. They've always feared African leaders who can't be bought, men who don't bow to foreign pressure. Traoré refused to be another puppet. He said no. And that word rattled the global elite more than any weapon ever could. When Burkina Faso kicked out foreign troops, they called it reckless. But reckless to who? Not to the people. To them, it was justice, a reclaiming of dignity long stripped away by colonizers disguised as peacekeepers. Traoré speaks for a generation of Africans who are done begging, done waiting, done being told who to vote for, who to trust, who to serve. His words aren't polished, they're real, raw, and they sting those who benefit from Africa's silence. They call him a dictator, but he walks through crowds with no fear, listens to the youth, sleeps among soldiers. He doesn't hide in palaces. He leads from the front. That scares them, because it inspires others. Every mine he reclaims, every corrupt deal he cancels, every foreign hand he cuts off from Burkina Faso's wealth is a blow to centuries of exploitation. And for the first time in a long time, the people feel seen. He reminds us that Africa was never poor. We were made poor by systems, by deals, by lies wrapped in aid and democracy. Traoré pulled back the curtain. He named the game. And the players didn't like that. They control the media, so they changed the narrative. He's too young, too radical. A threat to stability. But whose stability? The one where Africa remains a playground for the powerful? Where our leaders wear suits but serve foreign masters? The real truth? Traoré is waking up Africa, and nothing is more dangerous to the West than a continent that finally sees clearly. One that demands justice, not charity. Partnership, not pity. He's not perfect, he's not a saint, but he is a spark, a reminder that we are not helpless. That courage still exists in African blood. And that change doesn't come from Paris or Washington, but from the villages, streets, and voices of Africa itself. Young people are rising, sharing his words, quoting his speeches, wearing his face on shirts, not out of fandom, but out of belief. Belief that we too can stand tall, that we too can say enough. They've tried to isolate him. Sanctions, threats, lies. But they forget, he's not standing alone. Millions are standing with him. From Bamako to Kinshasa, from Harare to Lagos, Africa is watching and remembering who we really are. For too long, we were made to feel small. We were told our languages were primitive, our traditions backward, our leaders corrupt. But Traoré is turning the tide, and the West fears that this fire may spread. It already has. Mali said no. Niger followed, Guinea stood firm, and more will come, because the soil of Africa remembers, and our people are waking from a long, forced sleep. Traoré didn't just take power, he gave it back to the people. And that, in the eyes of those who rule by greed and fear, is the greatest threat of all. So when they ask, why do you support Traoré? Tell them this, because he reminds us of who we are, because he fights for us, because he gave us back our voice and dared us to use it. If you believe Africa deserves more, if you believe our children should grow up free, if you believe our land, our gold, our dignity is ours to keep, then stand with him. Stand for Africa. Stand proud. Like, comment, subscribe, share this message, not for clicks, but for the future, because they may control the headlines, but we control the story. And the story of Africa is just beginning. He didn't come to negotiate his country's dignity. He came to reclaim it. And that terrified them. Traoré was not just another president. They realized he was a mirror, reflecting every injustice done to Africa and the courage to confront it. The West had long relied on leaders who bowed easily, leaders who smiled while signing away their people's futures. But here was a man who looked them in the eye and said, no more. That kind of defiance is dangerous to them. Burkina Faso had been bleeding under the weight of silence, poverty, and manipulation. But with Traoré, the silence was broken. He spoke the words millions of Africans had held in their hearts. He turned whispers into war cries. Traoré didn't wear expensive suits. He wore fatigues, just like his soldiers. He didn't speak from palaces. He stood in the dirt with his people. He was proof that leadership didn't have to come from wealth, but from conviction. The French influence, the puppet strings, the exploitative deals, they started to crumble. And as Traoré cut those strings, a ripple began across Africa. Suddenly, other leaders were forced to ask themselves, who do we really serve? Western powers called him young and reckless. But the truth is, they feared what he represented, an African future not written in Washington or Paris, but in Ouagadougou, Accra, Bamako, and beyond. It wasn't just Burkina Faso that stood up. Mali, Niger, Guinea, nations started to rise, inspired by one man's refusal to kneel. One spark was enough to remind Africans everywhere that they still held the match. They sent delegations, they made threats, they tried to turn his people against him. But he stood firm. "I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees," he said. And those words carried like thunder across the continent. Even the youth, tired of empty slogans, began to believe again. Not just in Traoré, but in themselves. He had made them feel powerful again. And for a colonizer's system built on fear, hope is the most dangerous weapon. The media painted him as a dictator. But who really controls the narrative? The same voices that ignored decades of suffering now scream because their hold is slipping. When Africa writes its own truth, the lies begin to rot. Every time he speaks, he's not just talking to Burkina Faso. He's talking to every African who ever felt powerless, who ever wondered if change was possible. And his message is clear. Yes, it is. So ask yourself, why do they fear him so much? Is it because he's violent? No, it's because he's unbought. Because he reminds us that Africa's soul is not for sale, and that truth burns like fire through their halls of power. To those who still believe in a free Africa, Traoré is not a savior. He's a spark. A reminder that this generation has what it takes to break chains our ancestors died fighting against. The time is now, not tomorrow, now. If you've listened this far, it means you care. It means you feel it too. The rise, the roar, the rebirth of Africa. And if that's you, don't just watch. Stand, speak, share this message. Be part of this movement. Drop a comment below. Africa will rise. Let them know we're no longer sleeping. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to remember where they come from. This isn't just content, it's our story. Would you like